Cook Saw Manufacturing. I want to show you our MP32. What we've got here is the MP32 package 4. We've got a standard mill and the several packages that we offer. Package 4 is going to be our highest model, fully loaded option. But we're going to show you some of the features on the MP32 mill. So the heart of every band mill is going to be the blade and how you control it. So we're going to take a look at our band wheels. These are 19-inch wheels. They are solid steel. So we take this wheel, our idle side's going to have a bearing in it. Drive side will have a bushing in it. The bearing and bushing, they are mated inside of the band wheel, and then we put them on a machine that we've come up with, and we grind that wheel true. So it is precision ground. So when my blade is coming around, I don't have any flutter in the blade. It's not pulling and stretching on it. It is a perfectly smooth and round surface that blade's going around. It's less friction on it. So we've got 19-inch wheels. They are steel, and we are using diesel fuel as our lubricant. Now I can put any oil base in there, but my reservoir and filler cap is here on top, easy to get to. The reservoir is part of the frame. I get about 2 gallons, which is a full day of sawing. We are very conservative on our lubrication. And there's a little sight glass dripper in here, and about a drop or so a second going through that sight glass that I can control. So if I've got a little bit sappier wood, we do a lot of southern yellow pine, I may turn it up a couple drops a second. Anything else, about a drop or so a second going through it, and it's coming down on a wiper pad. So I'm not losing a whole lot of fluid. It's not pouring, it's not spraying. It is wiping directly on the blade. When that blade goes through the wood, it's got that oil coating on it, and that prevents the pitch from sticking to the blade. It's a lot easier to prevent it from sticking than trying to clean it once it's on there. Since we're using really diesel or an oil base, that goes very well with the steel wheels. So hand in hand, those work very well together. On our roller guides, we are using greasable guides. This one is set up for 1 1/4 blade here. But 2 roller guides, they're going to have down pressure pushing on the blade, so all of my control is on these guides. We've got 8-way adjustment on it. So I've got bolts here in the back. I can tilt my guide down, I can tilt it up. I want it flat. If it's tilted up, blade's going to rise, tilted down, blade's going to dive. So that is the control on my blade. These guides, we machine them here. They are heat treated, and then we return them. So they are precision ground as well. So I don't have that friction. It's not beating or bouncing on my blade, but it is giving me full control. On our idle side band wheel, we are using a spring tensioner. We call it a live tensioner because it is going to move with the blade. When the blade enters the wood, it may stretch a little bit, and that spring takes up any stretch that we're going to see in the blade. So it's this spring here, and we do have an indicator to line it up. So you've got your handle, slide it into the receiver. And to loosen the blade, I can crank that down. I can get enough slack in it that that blade gets loose enough. I can pull it easy on and off the band wheels for easy changing. When I've got the blade back on, that indicator, I want to line up flush going across, and that's going to give me the correct tension. So we're compressing that spring down, and it is on a hinge plate. So it does not matter if the blade is a little bit longer, a little bit shorter. If I compress that spring the same amount every time, I have the same tension every time. So very simple setup, very easy to operate, very easy to get the blade on and off. And it is mounted on 1/2-inch plate. Now this plate is mounted to the head of the sawmill, and that allows me to tilt the band wheel left and right for tracking. This is our book. So I can open that up to tilt the band wheel in and out to track the blade on the wheel. And then on our idle shaft, I'm able to tilt that up and down for alignment on the wheel. So I've got full control over my band wheel. Very easy to take the blade on and off and get that tension set up just right. And with that spring compensating for the stretch of the blade, works very well with the steel band wheels, precision ground wheels, and then our drip system. And that allows us to really take care of that blade. So moving our saw head, we've got power feed on this particular mill with a package 4, raising and lowering. up and down. And then I've got my crank handle here where I can fine tune that last little bits to line it up for accuracy, get even thickness on my board cuts. Our up and down is on a belt drive ran by a 12-volt motor. That motor is maintained off the engine, so I'm not having to recharge that battery constantly. Raising and lowering, we are using chain. I don't have cable that's going to wrap itself and get uneven. I'm using 40 roller chain, so it is picking up and down evenly. And it's strong enough to support the weight. This is a very heavy saw head, so the chain picks it up and down evenly from 2 points. Motor makes it easy for me, and then I've got my scales here that I can be very accurate on. These scales are magnetic, so they peel off. They're bright, clear numbers, easy to read. What comes standard on it will be these 2 scales here. Well, that magnet is pretty strong, but a 1-inch, 4/4, 5/4, and 6/4 on our scales, and then an adjustable pointer so I can dial that in and be very accurate on board thickness when I'm cutting. Forward and reverse. Again, we've got the optional power feed on this mill. This arm would come with it either way, and I can pull it back and forth. With the power feed option, pushing the button brings it back to me. Going forward, I have full control over the speed, so I can ease into a big log or turn it up once I get log size down, cut a little bit faster with it. So I've got full control over the forward and reverse. That is a 12-volt motor as well, maintained off the engine, and I am using chain to pull it back and forth. So it's not a rope system, it's not a cable system. We are using that 40 chain to pull it back and forth. Very strong, very sturdy. It's not going to slip, it's not going to skip on me. So the MP32 comes standard with 2 clamps and 2 squaring arms. I do have a foot peg on the operator side of the mill, so I can kick those arms up. So if I've got I can fit a 32-inch log on here, but if I got a big log, I'm not trying to reach over the top. I can operate it from this side, or if it's a smaller log or squared up, I can bring it over and move it up and down. So easy to operate. They will pivot all the way down, and I have a stop on each bunk. So once I've got a square edge of my log, I can put those all the way down. I don't have to worry about cutting into them. And the board is held in place by that stop. Blade is cutting this direction. Now to go along with my squaring arms, we do have clamps with each squaring arm. This works on a cam action, so it slides up to the log and it cam locks in place. So I'm sliding it, locking it, and then I'm ready to saw. There the log's held in place. So quick, easy, and it's strong enough to keep that log from moving in and out on me while I'm going through it. This particular mill does have this arm here in the middle. This is optional. It's put in place to help with shorter logs. So I can do 3 foot or I can do 6 foot, but the 2 outer are standard on every MP32. So the MP32 is going to weigh right at 2,000 pounds, depending on the package, the options that we go with. 3x6 heavy wall tubing. We're not using stamped metal. It is solid 3/16 heavy wall tubing, and it runs the full length. We've got a 12-foot standard, 16 foot on our packages, but we can build this mill to any length, and it's not bolted, it's not welded together. It's going to be one piece of tubing cut for the total length of the mill. It's up to 24-foot log cut. Very strong. I don't have any joints, I don't have any seams, so it's one solid piece. Gives me a lot of strength when I'm running those big heavy logs through it. And then we've got the 6 jack legs to level it up, 2,000-pound jack leg, side wind, so it's easy to level. The frame is stout enough. It can bow front to end, but it's not going to have twist or torque in it, so it is very rigid on the frame. And when it is set up for traveling, the head is going to sit over the axle, so it's well balanced. If we had to, I could pick it up on the front, move it around, get on a hitch, but it tows very well going down the highway, up to 75 miles an hour. So tows well, strong, solid, able to support the weight of your big logs. On each bunk, we do have a stainless steel cap on it. It's there for a couple reasons. One, it prevents iron stains on my wood, and 2, it's a slicker surface. So if I'm over here cranking on a big log, getting it rotated, using my winch to help me out, that log will slide a little bit easier Now you still get big 2,000–3,000 pound logs. They're heavy. It doesn't change the fact that the log is heavy, but it keeps it from getting stuck on that rough metal surface. So we've got the stainless caps on every bunk, protects my wood, and it makes it a little bit easier when handling. As an option on the MP32, we've got a log taper. If I've got a log that's say 20 inches on the butt end and it tapers down to 16 inches on the small end, I don't want to cut across the heart of the log, the pith of the log. So if my pith or my heart of the log is at an angle and I'm cutting across it, that's not a good quality board. But if I can pick the small end up, still the outer edges of my log will not be level, but I want to cut parallel to the heart of the log, and that taper helps me do that. So it gives me a little bit better quality cut, but it is a heavy roller on top, and then we've got a bottle jack here which will crank it up and set it down. So I can set it to the height I need, and then with the weight of the log, it'll push it down, and the jack will pick it back up. And depending on what I'm cutting, I may eyeball it. For my higher end woods, I'm gonna get out there with my tape measure and make sure it's just right. But the taper does make that easier process. This is welded onto the frame, so it is a solid unit able to hold up to the weight. We've got our winch loading and rotating system. That is an option on the MP32, standard on the package 4. Whenever I'm sawing, the winch comes out. Whenever I'm operating it, push it in, get that leverage nice and tight. And then you've got a remote that does plug into our battery box. And inside that box, there's enough room for storage where I can keep the remote when I'm not using it. But I've got a good bit of lead here so I can operate it from both sides of the sawmill. My log's got a taper and doesn't want to come up just right, I'm able to adjust that. This is a 4,000 pound winch, so I can handle a good sized log with it. But we've got a free spool option, so I can pull that cable out. It's going to wrap around my log, come back in, hook into my hook, and then I can use that winch to bring it up onto the mill. Now once I have it on the mill, maybe I make a few cuts and I'm ready to rotate it. So we've got a hook that'll come with it. Clips into place. And I bring that hook on the back side of my log and use that winch and rotate it over against my squaring arms here. So that takes a lot of the heavy lifting away from me. So a big benefit on that winch, loading and rotating my logs. On our drive band wheel, we've got, we call it the drive bearing assembly. It is 2 tapered roller bearings pressed inside of a housing, similar to what you'd find on the axle of your truck. So a very heavy built unit. And then we've got a 2 1/8 inch shaft going through it, and that's what the band wheel's mounted on. So way overbuilt for sawmill application. So that's not an item that you're gonna have trouble with. It is overbuilt and problem free. Now that bearing does bolt onto a 1/2 inch plate that is hinged, so I can tilt my band wheel in and out for tracking, and that is on both sides, both band wheels. So I've got tilt in and out and up and down, so they are fully adjustable on our band wheels mounted to that drive bearing assembly. So our saw head, we're taking care of the wheels or the blade with our band wheels, our spring tensioner, our lubrication system, but it is on a 4-post head. So heavy wall tubing, 2x2 tubing. You've got a tubing in the back, tubing in the front, and then you also have your guide rod. So it is well supported. This head is not flimsy. If I can move it, the whole frame's shaking. The head is not going to be bouncing on one side for me. And then we also have the V-track rollers that move, the head moves back and forth on, and that moves on angle iron, very smooth. And then there's a track scraper here that'll float, and it's just there to knock off any debris, clumps of sawdust, bark, anything that can get in my way to keep that head traveling smooth down the frame. So that's our MP32 sawmill, and if you noticed, I am operating, I'm pushing, all my controls are done on one side of the sawmill and the sawdust is going away from me. So a lot of benefits to this mill, good solid machine, very, very heavy built. If you've got any questions, please call our office. We're going to post a link in the description below so you can find out more information about this mill. And if you enjoyed the video, we'd appreciate it if you like, subscribe, comment. If you've got an MP32 and you've got some things you've experienced, some things you learned you'd like to share with us, please comment. We'd love to hear it.